So take it away, Dave and Mackie.
Hello and welcome to Do and Mackie's Shiny Side Out on WZZ. Yeah, coming to you from Australia for Revolution Radio on freedomslips.com. That's right, it's home to fresh, uninfluenced, non-corporate sponsored ideas and conversations, debates and discussions in the chat room and a place to get your merch. Get into the chat room if you can. It's always good fun. And today we have, I tell you, a great number of people. 42. Oh, 42. What's 42? What's the question? And this is show number 490, if I'm not mistaken. 90 and 400. It's 40. Oh, I beg your pardon. 489. 980 and 400. I was traveled forward in time. One more show to 90, and then 10 more shows after that to 500. 500 shows. Now you can catch us on air right now, online also now, and on your smart device also now. So grab an app to listen anywhere or listen at home on a Grace tabletop digital radio. If you missed Solaris' show, and she's the host just before us, she's got a couple hours just before our show. Her guest was David Cook from the Ghostly Hour. Action-packed with good information, entertainment, and an enjoyable listen any day. And well, I did not, but I worked with a man called David Forth, which means nothing to anyone, but I thought I'd just mention it, not the third. Now, if you missed her show, and you might have missed it, and that's okay, because you can get it on the archives. You can get it on the archives. Okay, all you have to do is go to Freedom Slips and go to the archives, and ideally you subscribe to Freedom Slips. That would be great. Or you support the show, not just the show, but the station in any which way you see fit. You can do it directly by contributing money, subscribing, like I said, to the station itself, or getting some merch. That'll help, right? And I think there's stuff happening on Patreon as well. So please go ahead and do help the station, because we are listener-funded radio. That means that there is really no one out there giving us money to do this, okay? And it is you and your generosity that help us run this, as well as, of course, dedicated staff and talent on air, which hopefully make this an interesting, entertaining, and educational experience for everybody, okay? But important, very, very important that we keep these avenues of discourse going. And you will find out why it's important when Dave and I will share some information with you, some things that you may not have heard about, and other things that you might have heard about, but maybe not quite in this light. Before we get into the meat of the show, though, we would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land here in Australia, which we inhabit and, in fact, broadcast the show from. For me here in Pemulwuy, it is the Darug people, and for Dave, thank you. And as you might have heard, both our sub-names are actual Aboriginal names, which is interesting as well if you think of the history that goes with occupation here in Australia. However, yeah, and look, and that makes sense. And Pemulwuy, in fact, was the Aboriginal warrior that killed the gamekeeper for Governor Phillip, I want to say, and he was put to death for his troubles, but now we've named a suburb after him. I think that's awesome. Now, however, we would like to pay our respects to elders, past, present, and future. And as a warning, we may be talking about people that are no longer living in this show. Okay, but no images, I don't think, will be shown. Okay, all right. It has been magnetic. It has been a very interesting week, certainly globally, absolutely. And I'd like to say hi to everybody in the chat room. Nobody, Valerie, Mackie, okay, not just Mackie, Susie Q909. And we have now seen things go from, or reportedly go from better to worse again. We're in the sine curve. And I know we will talk about COVID-19 or SARS-CoV-2, obviously, because that's a topic that's important. And in the chat room, they've already asked us, what's going on, what's happening, and it's really important that we do deal with it, because it is the numbers even in vaccinated countries, right, are not looking good. But before we go into this, we need to say once again that neither Dave nor I are medical professionals or give any kind of medical advice. All we're doing is we're pointing out numbers, and we, I guess, talk about research that has come to our attention, which might have been missed by the mainstream, but it's certainly worth mentioning. But the numbers, though, and this is the numbers I'm quoting from Worldometer here, they look like, in April, they were quite high. They were peaking infection numbers and almost reaching 1 million, right? And then they reached trough around the June, like mid-June. It was down to 300,000-400,000. It's really low, right? But lo and behold, the recent numbers, we're up to almost 700,000 again. So that's, and the funny thing is the sine curve is overlaid for infections and daily cases to daily deaths, and they're virtually identical. I mean, not the same numbers, but they go up by the same radius. Oh, this is global. These are global numbers. Yep. Yeah, but I do think, sorry, Dave, I do think that Indonesia is not as vaccinated as the UK. I think the UK has achieved 70-80% at this point. Oh, there is, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. And I just want to give a general comment here as well. I mean, we spend a lot of time talking about it, and I know people maybe get tired of hearing it. And there won't be too much of it coming. There's a couple of things we're going to mention to you guys, though, and Dave has got a couple of points to make around quarantine and other things as well. But I need to understand something. So from what I've seen here in Australia, and again, it's important for you to understand where I'm coming from. And I don't have to tell you any of this. I'm not compelled to tell you this, but I have taken the first Pfizer shot and getting my next one or second one next week. And I'm telling you this because it's a very personal decision for everyone, and we all have to make our own decisions here. Okay, so I'm just telling you what I've done, and I do it in the interest of full disclosure, so you don't think I'm a hypocrite when I say, oh, vaccines are dangerous but I've made that choice for myself. That's my choice. and I'll have to live with whatever the outcome is for whatever reason. It's my reasons, and let it be there. However, I can assure you that I have friends and family that are in the medical field, both in Australia and the United States. In fact, one of the family members that we have in the Bay Area in San Francisco is a nurse in one of the hospitals there, right? And here in Sydney, there are a number of medical professionals, doctors in hospitals, GPs. One of our family members has got two COVID clinics that he opened up in the southwest and west of Sydney. And he's on the news all the time now because in his particular suburb, that's where now the epicenter is. So it's pretty bad there, right? I assure you, this thing is real.
Yeah, it's real, all right.
What I don't know is how it started. Okay, and I've voiced my opinion before, and I'll say it again. Yeah, but clearly, if you know about the hypothesis, then you know that we've been expecting something like this for this time frame. In fact, right, we actually did.
Bill Gates, to be honest, has been on record saying that there's a pandemic coming, and even during this one, the next one will be worse.
Yeah. Right? Oh yeah, but Dave and I, we nailed down the year. That is what happened.
Yeah.
Okay, and we did this 5-6 years ago. It's simply because of the algorithm that we built around the awareness cascade. Look, be that as it may, but it's a real thing. Team members of mine, I've mentioned this before, in the Philippines, their family members are sick. In the Philippines, interestingly enough, they take, even if you are a citizen in the Philippines, you live in the Philippines, you get sick, they actually take you out of the household that you're in and take you into quarantine. Okay, so that's what they're doing. I mean, I'd like to see that happening here or in America.
It doesn't happen here, let's say that.
Oh, that would be something else, right? But what has certainly happened is in Sydney, we saw 1,700 police in the CBD. Now, the CBD is about a fifth, 20% the size of Manhattan.
Yeah,
thereabouts. Okay? It's not big at all. It's like a tiny CBD. I mean,
it's like a kilometer by about 3K or something.
Yeah,
it's really not much.
It's not. But it is the central business district, the high rises. A Center Point is there, the Harbour Bridge, Opera House, etc., etc. But in that little tiny area, they concentrated 1,700 police because they didn't want another protest to happen. And I guess it worked because the protest didn't happen. Now, is this overkill? I don't know. It just seems like a lot of police.
Well, their intelligence said that more was going to happen, maybe, and maybe it just didn't. Don't know.
Look, and Dave will talk about a couple of other measures that were taken as well. So, look, all I'm saying to everybody is just be safe. Stay at home if you can. I know a lot of people can't do that, and a lot of listeners that we have probably can't do that because they have real jobs that they actually have to go to. Protect yourself, get enough sleep, eat the right food. Believe it or not, your immune system can deal with a lot of stuff. If you look after yourself, you have the right vitamins, you eat the right food, you drink a lot of water, you rest.
Sleep.
Sleep. You can weather the storm much better than someone else. That's just a simple fact of it, right? That's why they're talking about comorbidity factors. So if you've got other issues as well, like obesity or heart disease or whatever, then chances are that this could do you in. But if you look after yourself and you live a reasonably healthy life, that's a really good tick in the box. And be prepared.
Yeah, the other thing to note is if you've not come in contact with a similar coronavirus in the last 5 years, this one could hit you very, very hard, right? So the Delta variant, as we've all heard 1,000 times, is now across the entire world, and it's the predominant variant. And it's only due to the speed at which it spreads. Like weeds in the garden, the tallest weeds are just the ones that grow aggressively. It doesn't mean they're more successful. That actually makes them successful by being able to outgrow the competition. So you get more sunlight, more water, blah, blah, blah. Right? So the same thing is the Delta variant is just like the others, except it has a couple of traits that allows it to spread very easily, in fact, too easily. And because of that, it spreads to more people, and therefore the count of infected people with it skyrockets, right? So I noticed something this week, and I've been watching this intently for a long time, and one is that the Florida and Texas have just said now that they're not going to use lockdowns to control it. They're tired of all the lockdowns. They've all been fatigued by it. Remember the war and terror, the same kind of deal. Everyone just had the war and terror fatigue. Well, now people have got the virus fatigue. Don't care about it anymore. We're just going to get on. We're going to press on and just work through it. But of course, that may not work well for them, and it may be the wrong decision at this point. And be very aware that if they're truly intelligent people, they'll pivot and change their minds on the lockdowns should they start to see some rather large numbers coming through of new cases, right? And more so the fatality rate going up and the hospitals being, overrun by people requiring urgent assistance, or at least in intensive care, in ICU, or even on ventilators, as we did in the beginning. But our treatments we've learnt a lot since the beginning, and I think that has helped out. There's also, I discovered, a huge concert going on with at least 100,000 people, and I just didn't catch where it was, but it certainly it looked lovely. The music sounded great. Geez, and I was so jealous when I saw it going. I wish I could go there, because we're in lockdown and we can't go out. We can't travel, 10 Ks if you're in
5.
Yeah, 10 Ks in the zone that I'm in, 5 Ks in the zone you're in.
Yep, that's right.
Yep. So I feel sorry for Mackie, because he's living, in close quarters in those LGAs, the local government areas, which are seeing some of the highest case numbers coming through. Now, in America, the CDC is the controlling body for health nationally, and they've just confirmed, finally, Mackie, they've just confirmed that this Delta strain, or the variant, the Delta variant, is airborne. And I have to say, finally, hallelujah. And they said in their press release, they said that it spreads as easily as chickenpox.
Yeah, I heard that actually. Yeah,
that's the quote. That's the graph.
Which is very easy. Which is very easy. I might add. Yeah. I had the chickenpox when I was 19. Not a good thing, but yeah.
Yeah, that's a bit old.
It is, my friend. I was borderline of making it, because my fever was just burning through me, man. It was bad.
Wow. So I remember I scratched only one of the pox, and I got a pox mark from it. And it was the only one that I scratched. And everyone said, how come you scratched it? I said, have you had chicken pox? You know how hard it is to resist? Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. It's just insane. It could, honestly, you could use it at Guantanamo Bay to get. Yeah. If you could make someone so infectiously itchy as the chicken pox, but as an adult, oh my goodness me, you'd get anything out of them. It was driving me spare. Anyway, the funny part is Biden has now even doubled down to quote a phrase of one of my the show's fans, actually, Mackie, that we talk all the time. He's a friend of mine. He said that even if you're vaxxed, this is Biden says, even if you're vaxxed, you should wear your mask indoors in public spaces and workplaces, even if you're vaccinated. Because what they've discovered is, this is part of the CDC release, that it's been announced that the bloom in the noses of those tested who were already vaccinated are as large, not the noses, but the bloom, they're as large as those who aren't vaccinated. The only difference is the severity of the personal outcome being much less severe when you've got the vaccine. But this is what I'm saying. So finally, this is now coming from an authorized outlet, because when Mackie and I were speaking about it, we're not allowed to, right? We're not allowed to say anything, any messaging that isn't from the WHO.
Correct. They will shut us. Well, they
already deleted stuff of ours, Mackie. Yeah, they deleted stuff of ours because
That's on YouTube, in case you're wondering, guys.
Yeah. So that drove me spare. I couldn't understand. Yeah, but the WHO is behind in the messaging. So if we're saying something that has now been discovered as peer-reviewed, it's now the true source of what the WHO is going to say, we're just saying something in advance of the WHO. Oh, no, they haven't said it yet, so you can't say it. Because it conflicts with their messaging is the problem. And I think that's kind of extraordinary. But we're living in a world that is so censored. Anyway, I'll move on. So the thing that joins it... Oh, actually, no, Meki. To do with the virus, and what have you discovered this week?
Oh, no. I've mentioned this months ago when it first came out, in fact. And then I spoke to my medical friends who had heard nothing about it and thought that's it's just a whole bunch of nonsense. I said, no, it's not, because the first I heard about it was when the University of Glasgow.
But what did you hear, Mickey?
Well, essentially the rhinovirus, which is the common cold, really, protects people from SARS-CoV-2. That's what it essentially does, okay? And like I said, it was the University of Glasgow that first published that research, okay, back in March.
But now it's the Yale University.
And now, from June the 12th, this is June 15, 2021, Yale University. And the summary of the study essentially is this. This is from Science Daily. In a new study, the researchers found that the common respiratory virus, that's the rhinovirus, jumpstarts the activity of interference-stimulated genes, early response molecules in the immune system, which can halt replication of the SARS-CoV-2 virus within airway tissues infected with the cold. So in layman's term, I'm oversimplifying it a bit here. What it means is that a common cold protects you from SARS-CoV-2. That's essentially what it means. And I've only found 3 news articles. One is from when it first happened in March, back this year in March. Then there's another one from April, which refers back to the Glasgow study. And then now Yale University seems to have picked it up recently, and they published June 15, 2021. Now, this is really important if you think about it. And I thought that we would look at this a lot more, maybe even divert some of the vaccine money to explore how the common cold can help us here. Right? Because it is a thing. It's a thing. It's not made up. It is not a theory. It actually does hold SARS-CoV-2 completely. Any variant.
That's that is the kind of messaging that look, nobody. We're going to go to other stuff. Saying that in the chat room.
But you probably haven't heard it. That's my point here, right? And
that's right.
This is important stuff to know as well, right?
Yeah.
So vaccines aren't necessarily the only chance we have at defeating this thing.
Well, look, it's good to see that the research is continuing.
Yes, it is.
And certainly, look, I for me, Yale University is a trusted outlet. It isn't a BitChute or another one of the non-peer-reviewed. This is definitely coming from a trusted source. So let's leave it there. Right. Now the whole thing that I've been looking into, and you heard me last week talking about quarantine. The quarantine should be our first line of defense. Absolutely, 100%. We should be quarantining. And I looked towards our government, our trusted government. I love the leader, and the trusted government for good information here, but I found nothing. I found an absence of discussion. No media were taking it up. There was nothing at all on blame. No blame. No root cause analysis. And then I stumbled upon a story which was really cool. It said that 98.4% of all COVID cases in Australia were linked to quarantine breaches. There was only 1.6%. That's what's remaining. There's only 2 options here. One is quarantine failure, or the other was flight crew. That's it. That's it. That's all it was. So, given the apparent appalling effort of using hotels where there is combined air and no isolated air, it's not BSL level 4, blah, 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 blah. You could go into hotel quarantine, perfectly healthy, and come out with the virus, having caught it in the quarantine from someone through shared air in the air conditioning system, either on your floor or another floor inside the hotel, because hotels aren't quarantine facilities. They're just places to stay. There's no air gaps. No one said open up the window. They're all closed window environments. Crazy, right? So the second line of defense should be vaccines, then masks, then lockdowns. And the WHO mentioned that you can't use lockdowns as the primary method of controlling the virus. You must use masks before then. Yeah? So that's the WHO messaging, and I kind of agree with that, but what they don't talk about is quarantine. If only the WHO had suggested that everyone should put in place appropriate, and that means whatever solves the solution, solves the problem of quarantining, put in place something that made that work, right? So, but what we're seeing now as a result of the and I'm going to call it poor quarantining, is in Brisbane, Mekki, they've actually decided to use the Damascus Barracks in Brisbane as a dedicated quarantine facility, like we use the one in Darwin occasionally, like just for returning Australians, not for travellers. Right? The rest of the people just went to Sydney in a hotel. I think mainly because the hotels were just saying, look, we're dying here. You need to throw us a bone. And they go, oh, just what about you do quarantine? Sure, right? I think that's about as deep as that conversation got. But so a purpose-built quarantine facility could be operating in Brisbane as early as next year, after a feasibility study found a defence site in Brisbane seized to be suitable. Right, that's it.
We never did a feasibility studies in the hotels, you know.
No, we didn't. No,
it was just done.
Because no, this requires money being spent. So now we need a feasibility study, and there'll be an appropriate amount of oversight into this, right? So anyway, look, I have to say that in New South Wales now, we do have military on the streets. They're to help the policing of the quarantine restrictions. That's a big step. It's not martial law. I know a lot of my friends on Facebook have been calling it out, saying it's martial law. No, it's not. That's a different circumstance. But also, something interesting is that in our local news, we're not seeing, we don't have any visibility on the protests in all of the other countries. But it's like 30 countries. You know, France is protesting using vaccine passports. In Australia, we just protest against being locked down again. That's what our protests were all about freedom. Right? But nowhere are people protesting about the lack of quarantine because it's not the message. Isn't that extraordinary?
It is. Well, because the people don't want to focus on that, right?
Well, no one wants anyone to focus on it. Look over there. What's that over there? Now back to the wall. Right? So, yeah. Look, it does my head in. But look, here's where shiny side out. We look through this so you don't have to. Yeah? We look through it, we find it, we bring it to you in a little package so you can consume it because, to be honest, it was when I was growing up, we had SBS News, which showed us a very broad amount of news from all around the world.
It's still there.
I know, but I don't listen to Channel 7, Channel 9, Channel 10, or any other vector. It's the ABC News.
Yeah, I've got ABC. Funnily enough, I listen to Deutsche Welle as well, which is German. British broadcaster Al Jazeera is on there. RU, as well, and SBS as well as ABC, and then there are other news sources I can pull as well. But and then of course I know a lot of people overseas as well, family, friends, etc. And I get my information from them as well. It helps. It helps.
Yeah, for me, roughly CNBC. Like I'd watch the Foxes and the CNNs. I've got to get both sides of the argument so I know what they're talking about. But, you know, Meki, when I started looking around, you know, we've only heard in our countries, in our respective countries, about local news. Very, very few stories make it through to the top 4 or top 5 stories for the evening. And I've discovered floods everywhere in the Northern Hemisphere, for that matter.
Yep.
Like Turkey. I mentioned Turkey last week, and we knew about Germany. But Germany's had more again. And then China, Bangladesh, India, London, Belgium, Colombia, and Italy. They've all had extraordinary quantities of rain. Wow. That to me is a very powerful statement about how much water's in the atmosphere right now.
Oh, look, completely. But it's not only that. I mean, what we're seeing precipitation patterns change. We're seeing weather patterns change, more or less, right? And again, any individual event like that, you go, well, yeah, floods happen. Like freak weather events happen all the time. If there's a flood in Germany, well, so what? There's a flood in Turkey, so what? There's a fire in Turkey, so what? There's a fire in North America, so what? There's a flood in China, so what? There's a flood in India, so what? Right? Now, this is in and of itself. That's absolutely a perfectly logical statement to make. It makes no difference if there's a flood over here or there. But the problem starts happening, and the only reason we talk about this is to make people aware that they need to be prepared. Because we've been in situations here in Australia a number of times now, certainly over the last 2 or 3 years, where having been prepared at home made the difference between life and death. Be prepared at home in case a freak weather event comes your way. And the problem with these freak weather events is that they're no longer freak events. And I include fires here as well.
It's annual now.
It's a thing. It's a thing. And it happens in various different geographies at the same time. So it is no longer just a freak event over here, freak event over there. It's not. Like I said last week, we had to invent new words to talk about the ferocity and strength of the weather systems, storms specifically. It's a thing. I'm not even talking about geological events at all, right? That's completely unrelated. But we see these things happening now, right? I'm dreading the coming summer for Australia. We're coming out of La Nina, which was quite wet. So our summer last year was quite wet, which, you know, so we didn't see terribly many fires. There were still some fires, but they weren't too bad. But now we're moving into, I think, a fairly dry summer here in Australia, fairly hot as well. Do I want to see a repeat of the 2019 fires, which nobody seems to remember, which killed about 2 billion animals?
3 billion animals.
Is it 3 billion?
3 billion,
Holy
yeah.
moly.
Yeah.
That's a lot, right? Now, have we recovered? No, we haven't recovered. We're still in the recovery process. People are still homeless from it.
That's true.
And
yeah.
It is. I know. So the problem is this, right? It's really a very important thing to understand that, look, I don't care if you believe in climate change or not. It doesn't really matter to me. It really doesn't. I see the patterns, and I've been a keen observer of the patterns for decades now, right? It's just what I do. And again, single events here and there mean absolutely nothing, right? Once you start stacking them up and they start happening all the time, everywhere, not just here and there, but everywhere, that's when you start taking notice. Now, let's hope that people that are out there that are skeptical about this don't start taking notice when the ocean waters are lapping at their front door, because it'll happen, right? Let's hope that won't happen, you know, once Spain has turned into a desert and the Sahara is green again, because at that point, that's it. We are now on a new bus, okay? Again, I'm not saying it's humanly induced climate change. I don't know. I have no idea if it is. I don't think it is, but, you know, because climate changes all the time. It changes all the time. And we have been living through a very stable period for a number of time now. We've really had a lot of stability, several hundred years, in fact, globally. I'm talking, right? And it's been very mild. And now we're not anymore. And in the past, if you look at the geological past of the Earth, you see that climate change is a normal thing. It happens all the time, right? And what we're denying here is we're denying it happens. Why? Why? I mean, again, we're not saying it's a human factor here. There may be, but it's actually completely beside the point. It doesn't matter what's causing this, because whatever is causing it, there's nothing we can do to reverse it. That ship, if even we ever had the chance to do anything, that ship sailed long ago. The climate will change whether we like it or not. I think it's hilarious. And just one more thing, out in the chat room as well, and Perfidious and others. Let's be very clear here, right? I don't believe this is a scamdemic. I think it's a plandemic. Okay, a scamdemic means there's nothing is really going on. It's all just nonsense, right? I don't think that's true. I think something is going on, but I believe it is planned. And if anybody for 1 second believes that the parasites wouldn't do this to us, I urge you very strongly to read history again and see just what these people are capable of, if you want to call them people. This thing is as real as it gets, okay? And not everybody is read in. All these people that come up with these lockdowns, these local or even national politicians, none of them are read in. There's only very few people that are read into the narrative, and they're quite high. And yes, I do know all about the CDC. I don't care about the CDC, okay? Or any of those organizations at all, because I think they're in cahoots. They're part of this plandemic. Okay, look at the Georgia Guidestones for a second.
Yes.
I'm not saying that's where we're heading, but look at the Georgia Guidestones. Look at what Cecil Rhodes 100 years ago wanted to do. Okay, look at who called all of us the useless eaters, and then think about how they see us and how they want to deal with us. Okay, think about that for a second. And we've done this show now for 10 years, and we've learned a lot. We've met a lot of great people. We've talked to a lot of great people, and believe it or not, a lot of the serious researchers out there, a lot of them are dead now.
That's right.
Why? They were in agreement with us. Would they be in agreement with us on SARS-CoV-2? Maybe not. I don't know. All I know is something is going on. This is not a scam. Okay?
Yeah, so I agree with Mickey. It's not a scam. As far as the CDC is concerned, when I was talking about it, I was clearly giving you a viewpoint that they've finally come to what Meki and I were talking about in February last year, that they've finally made a public announcement for it. Look, the governments and Big Pharma seem quite intent on selling 7.7 times 2 vaccines to the planet, and they've crawled over each other to try and make it work.
Oh, Pfizer's making 43 billion on this, or 47 billion or something.
Yeah, the numbers are quite large, that we're talking about here. And yes, they're all in competition with each other to try and provide the vaccine as quickly as possible. Yeah. So right now, the government in Australia has basically conceded to the virus as a federal government and said we're just going to have to live with it for the rest of our lives. We're going to have vaccines every year because there isn't a way of getting it out of the population any longer. Like, they were too slow to act in a way that it would run out of hosts and then disappear. The only thing that we could truly hope for is that the virus itself mutated to be harmless entirely, and then as a result disappeared because it was incapable of transmitting from human to human. That would be ideal. But it's not happening. It isn't the case. The governments of the world have completely let the population down. Not a call to arms. Not. But they've let us down because their quarantine has failed. They really didn't put much effort into the damned quarantine in the first place, right? And that's why we're where we are. But it seems as though if I could display it best, it would be a hand puppet, and the hand puppet, the controller is Big Pharma, and the puppet is the government. If I could display it any other way that put them, maybe both of them, into better favor, I would. But at the moment, that's all, and that's going to get me. Yeah, I thought the brakes on my car problem was bad. Yeah, but I thought they smelled bad on the outside. I'm going to have a real hard time with that. I know, right? But I'm not saying that I'm just saying this is where we live. This is what the state of the play is. If I was a coach trying to get the team back to going in the same direction, good luck, right? I'm just going to be over here doing my thing. 𝐫𝐞𝐯𝐨𝐥𝐮𝐭𝐢𝐨, the reduction of the age at which it's lawful to provide children or teens
Netherlands,
with
12 years. Yeah.
It's continuing to drop.
Preteen now. It's preteen.
Yeah,
no
12.
Teen.
Yeah.
See, the problem is this as well, and this is really where my problem lies with all of this. Vaccines are inherently not safe. They're not, but it's always the greatest good outweighs the smallest good.
Mm-hmm.
That's just how people see it, right? And that's, look, I get that. Look, from a utilitarian point of view, I completely understand what people are saying. However, these vaccines are new, very, very new, and for some of them they use technology and procedures and protocols that haven't been used before. So we have no longitudinal studies. I've said it before and I'll say it again. This is a very personal decision, right? And there are risks. There are. That's full stop. There are risks, right? Is anything else going on with those vaccines? I honestly don't know. I don't know. I have not seen, and I went to the website as well. David Martin, I looked at. By the way, if it interests you, David Martin is a high-ranking Mason. If you look at his website, I don't know if that makes a difference to anyone in the chat room, but he talked about the wobble effect as well. So look him up. Mm-hmm. He's not just an average dude. Okay, he's a high-ranking Mason. I don't know if, again, like I said, I don't know if this makes the difference to anyone in the chat, but if you are listening to him, be aware where he is and where he came from. Okay, that's important to understand. You always have to follow it through. So I actually looked at his video. I went to his website, and his company, I think it's called 𝐫𝐞𝐯𝐴𝐥 or whatever it's called. Can't remember. There's only him. There's no team. The team is him. Okay, but just to be, so we're all clear what we're talking about here. And again, is he right? I'm sure there's information in there that's gold, right? Other stuff, well, you gotta find out for yourself. Look at the research, understand but don't just inherit opinions. Don't inherit our opinion. Go out there and inform yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, do you know what I realized the other day, 𝐫𝐞𝐯𝐶? There's so little that I actually search for on Google anymore. Like I have everything bookmarked. I go there because it's a trusted source. I read the information. There's so little that I actually use Google for now. Like I was flabbergasted at how little that I used it. Like, really?
Mm-hmm.
I found the sources I want. I've now gone there. So if Google disappeared, I'd still go to all my sources anyway. Does it it makes a kind of weird sense?
No, I get it.
I realized something about Facebook, to be honest with you, and that is it's like a poker machine. Like you're scrolling up, you scroll up, you're scrolling down. I suppose it depends on you're scrolling the images up the screen.
Mm.
Yeah. And the placement of those images and how they make you feel are determined by an algorithm. And what is being presented, and the ads that are being presented, and remember that study they did, 𝐫𝐞𝐯𝐶, where there was like 5 images of niceness and a bad one,
mm-hmm.
and then they would show you another 5 images and a bad one, mm-hmm. and then so the next time the 5 images have completed, your body goes into a state where it's prepared then to see a bad image.
Yes.
However, if you show them a good image instead, they connect the bad feeling with the good image.
Yeah.
And you can see it on a polygraph. The next time the good image is prepared as shown without that 5-1-5-1 pattern, their body reacts with the bad feeling.
It's classical conditioning.
It is conditioning.
coupled with desensitization as well. So initially you have the desensitization, which goes hand in hand with the conditioning. And there's one thing I need to say as well. Sorry to do this, but this is important because I'm seeing the chat in the chat room, and it seems to be going in one direction. To be very clear, and we've said this in many shows in the past. We actually did a show on this, I think. If we haven't, we will. Western medicine has got one aim. It's to manage your disease.
That's right, not
That's
cure.
it. That's it. There's no interest. If you subscribe to Ayurvedic or traditional Chinese medicine, that will treat the root cause, not the symptom. So let me give you a very simple example. You got a headache. You take Nurofen or whatever, or whatever painkiller you prefer, whatever country you're in. It probably contains a whole bunch of different chemicals. What they do though is they shut off the pain receptors. So you
still got the headache.
Yeah. So yeah, exactly. So let's say I'm just an extreme example. There's a spear lodged in your stomach. It's very painful, doctor. Oh, I can see. Here, 2 aspirin. Come and see me tomorrow. And that's essentially what it is. The pain is managed. The spear, the root cause, is not dealt with. And that's how Western medicine works at large. Not always, but at large. And it does so because the big pharmaceuticals, that's how they make their money. When this pandemic happened, Pfizer, AstraZeneca, whoever they are, they must have thought all their Christmases came at once, all right? Insofar as they weren't involved in the initial pandemic, because, like I said earlier, Pfizer's going to make $47 billion on this thing this year.
That's a nice handy little pocket change, isn't it, Mackie?
Yeah, which it had to go through none of the regulatory requirements to get it through, that's normally the thing that costs the money, right? Which is why medicine is normally expensive. No, didn't have to do any of this. All waived. In fact, Pfizer or any of the pharmaceuticals, or in fact doctors, can not be.
You can't pursue them for any negative outcomes.
No, they've all been indemnified.
That's correct.
Every last pharmaceutical, every last physician. So
even the government is indemnified from making you have it.
Yeah, correct. So the only difference between the difference between Eastern and Western medicine is that Eastern medicine looks at your life, your lifestyle. It wants to live a healthy life. So they will give you advice that will change your behavioral patterns. They will give you herbs that might, help you in the short term, but then it's up to you to change in the long term, right? Western medicine is all about the short term and the management of whatever. Oh, you got a headache now? And the ad is always this. Oh, I can't work. Oh, no, don't worry, Mr. Worker Bee. I've got a pill for you. You'll be as productive as ever. I mean, I don't really care what caused your headache in the first place, but you can still work. Here's your pill. That's Western medicine. I'm fully aware of it. I'm fully cognizant of this. Absolutely. No,
in some jobs, Mackie, the headache could have been caused by banging your head against the wall.
Look,
right?
And there's that. But look, I'm not saying Western medicine is all bad, because there's certain advances, of course, which are phenomenal. I mean, we can do things today which, I mean, women used to die in childbirth on a regular basis. Doesn't happen anymore that much, right? Because we know about infectious diseases. We know about the penicillin. We know all about that stuff,
and
right?
also mismatched blood types.
Sure, sure, all of that stuff. Now, but Western medicine really is not interested to treat the root cause. Eastern medicine is. Eastern, and in fact, when I say Eastern, I mean pretty much all traditional medicine practices, but Ayurvedic and TCM, traditional Chinese, are probably the largest and oldest pieces. And believe it or not, it works. I've undergone TCM treatments. I've also used Ayurvedic medicine. It works to treat, but you do have to change your lifestyle. You do have to change your life. Okay. Now, everybody can attract anything. Now, there are obviously practices everywhere in any form, in any process that are complete nonsense. Others are not. And cow poop, nobody is not part of Ayurvedic medicine. Please, all of you, do your research before you start talking about things you don't.
The comment that nobody made prior to that, we can't say on air anymore because it deletes your platform.
Can't say.
So good luck with that.
So that's not so the point here is really that yes, our eyes are wide open, but it's our responsibility to show you all of the picture. Okay? Not just the picture that you would like to see.
Yeah. Like I hear that. So look, with respect to everyone in there, I just certainly things that Meki and I can and can't say, but you can tell by how we say things and what we say in particular, as to the sentiment behind it and why we're talking about it. All right. So I know that the CDC came up. You've got to understand what it means, what all of this means from a high level view. And there's a lot of people talking about it. There's a lot of information that you can derive. But look, to be honest, be careful. Don't be silly. If you simply, this is the anti to the scamdemic. If you truly take in the mindset that, and just because you don't know someone personally, there's no one degree of separation between someone who has passed away from the virus and you can't assume that it doesn't exist. So we're saying it is. We have people in the medical field that know it is, that are treating doctors, ICU people. There's certainly one of my neighbors is an ICU doctor, and he said it's quite a thing. So don't fall into the trap that they'd like you to fall into, because you're easily dealt with if you believe it's fake, because you're more likely to put yourself in harm's way, and they don't really care what happens to you. Think about the messaging that, there might be groups of people equivalent to, say, a 50-cent army, say it was $1 army, if you know what I'm saying, that was out there just to try and separate everyone into tiny little groups so they can then pick off.
Divide and conquer.
Absolutely. Sun Tzu. So it's Sun Tzu, isn't it, Meki?
Yes.
Yes. The Book of War. You've got to understand that, the same thing we saw with Q or QAnon, we saw the same thing there. There's one message, but then it spread and changed, and what the people heard and who that came from was different than the true source. And then there was action occurring that maybe there shouldn't have been. I'm kind of trying to paint you a picture here that the messaging that you're hearing from the source that you think might be reputable may be echoed, and that whispers game where the message changes over time, or it's just intentionally put out there like heavy mass object, if we all remember those terms, coming into the solar system, going to ruin everything, and it was already here, and it was just about to hit Earth, and everyone was taking photos of two suns, and they're saying the second one was Nibiru. Who do you think's, made that messaging happen? All of flat Earth is just another way of vacuuming all of the partially intelligent people over to the flat Earth, to move them away as a listening audience to the real information. Because then they won't talk to anyone anymore. Oh, you don't believe the flat Earth, man? No, I'm not going to listen to you. So their objective has been won. They've conquered. They've done the thing they wanted to do. So just be careful and make sure that you have your information coming from a number of trusted sources, and weigh it up for what it is. Use your mind. Don't inherit someone else's opinion. And there's the music. Perfect. Beautiful. Perfectly timed. This is David Meki's Shine Us That Out on freedomslips.com. Join us after the break. Today, a very short break. You might go to the toilet or do something else. Maybe have a cup of tea or a glass of water or something, or your favorite beverage. And we'll see you shortly after the break has concluded. Take care, everyone. See you in a second.